454-4980 is the number. In the studio, wow, what a treat. Memorial Day weekend. It's not a time for barbecues. It's not a time to go out and get drunk. It's a time to remember the men and women who put on a uniform and went off and gave their lives for this country. Or at least offered their lives for this country. Some of them have done heroic, amazing things. Some were never called to do heroic, amazing things. The gentleman sitting here with us today has written a book. And it's a book everyone should read. And this isn't the reason I brought him on, but really you should read his book. It's called Code Burgundy. His name is John Katsaros. He lives in Haverhill. I was lucky enough to meet him a couple of times when he came to a Tea Party meeting to speak about his book and to speak about his experiences. His name is John Katsaros. He was captured 3 times, right? 3 times you were captured by the Nazis?
Twice by the Nazis.
Twice by the Nazis.
Yeah, once by the Spanish government.
Wait a minute, I don't think your mic is on. Try that again.
I said twice by the Nazi Gestapo and once by the Spanish Gestapo.
Oh, all right. So you escaped 3 times.
Well, not escaped.
You're a determined guy.
No, I escaped twice, but in the Spanish constabulary where they locked us up after climbing the Pyrenees Mountains, and they locked us up in Lower to Spain. We were there several days before we found out through a doctor who examined us, and we were all under 90 pounds at the time. And he pointed to me and he says, "You're 87 pounds." And but did you know that the Allies landed in Normandy and a proceeding? We had no idea this because we were at the top of the French side of the Pyrenees Mountains on June 6, 1944. And what happened is that there was a major with me. I got in touch with the major, and he was able to talk to the commander of the prison, and we allowed him to call the it was the English that had the commander in Madrid, and he said in a couple of days the Americans are going to open up their embassy here in Madrid, and we'll come and get you all, and they did. That's how we got out of there.
How were you captured the first time? Just kind of take us through, before we even get there, how did you get in country? How did you get into Germany when you were captured the first time?
Well, first, the last mission we flew a bomber. We were flying B-17s with 10 men aboard. And when we took off to bomb Frankfurt, Germany, we were going to bomb a very important engine factory that was producing the first bomber, a jet bomber that could have flown from right from France right into New York City and bomb the city. And they had the possibility of having the atomic bomb before us. If it wasn't for the 8th Air Force and the British, they would have had it before us.
Wow.
Because we kept bombing them and killing their engineers or what have you. And the weather was so bad, but it was critical to bomb the factory. And when we took off, 2 planes crashed over our air base because they couldn't reach 30,000 feet, not seeing each other because we had a complete blackout. We thought they were going to recall the mission, but we went into Germany, and about 5 minutes before getting into the initial point of attack, a plane above us lost control, came down, almost hit us. My pilot went into a dive several thousand feet. By the time he brought it up again, there was not another plane in sight. Because of radio silence, we couldn't find out where they went. And we figured they were called to another target. We weren't sure about it, but we decided to go into Frankfurt. When we get to Frankfurt, we were all alone. So if you see the 8th Air Force date of March 20th, 1944, that Frankfurt, Germany was bombed, we were the only planes over there.
Wow.
So we lost 2 engines over there after hitting the target. And believe it or not, my bombardier hit that target and knocked it off 92%, which is pretty good. Pretty good bomb. My pilot took off from Frankfurt. We wanted to fight our way. We had to fight our way because the German Air Force came after us, 6 at a time. These Me-109s, which were pretty good planes at the time, they just kept firing the devil out of us. We kept firing back at them. And we didn't want to bail out of Germany because we'd have gone into a prison camp if we were lucky. either that or they would kill, if you landed in a farm area, a farmer would pitchfork you to death, or hang you or shoot you, one or the other. So we tried to make our way into France. We finally did get into France, but we were running out of ammunition. Then all of a sudden, everybody's getting hit on the plane with machine gun fire. We lost 4 men on the plane.
On your plane?
Right, yeah, 4 men. Out of the
Guys you
10
knew?
men, 4 were killed. And then what happened is that before they died, the left waist gunner had been shot in the neck, and I went over and put my scarf around him, but it was 60, 70 below zero at the time. We were flying with open waist windows, cold as the devil, and the blood congealed enough for him to be bailed out. So we threw him out of the plane, and he died 2 days later. In the meantime, the tail gunner was slumped over, and I went back to help him out. And
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, I know his name is Benz. Yeah, Alvin Benz.
Because sometimes people listen to these on the podcast on the internet later, and they're relatives of some of the guys. So I just want to try and, if you remember their names, and if you don't, that's okay.
Yeah, I remember him very well. And Benz, it took me 65 years to contact their family.
Wow.
And I'm in constant contact with them. And then what happened is that he lived for about 15, 20 seconds, but he died on me. And I took two guns that he had. It had ammunition in them, and this German plane came right at me. Never fired a shot. I blasted him right out of the sky, but
wow.
The plane just blew up. That was my second kill. Anyway, went back to the waist at that time because I ran out of ammunition in the back, and all of a sudden, the wing caught fire, and the pilot says, "Bail out of the plane." So we had to leave Benz in the plane. We had to leave our top turret gun in the plane, but the bombardier picked up the navigator who was badly wounded, put his parachute on, threw him out of the plane, and his parachute never opened up.
Oh boy.
And that was the third death. The fourth death was let's see, there was a top turret gunner, the left waist gunner, the navigator, and the tail gunner. They all passed away. Well, anyway, what happened, we had to bail out at 27,000 feet. Now, we're trying to put our parachutes on. We couldn't get our parachutes on because we were all shot up pretty badly. We couldn't clip them onto our harness. And the radio man was the only one that could do that because he was hitting a leg in the back. But he came over and put my parachute on. In the meantime, the ball turret gunner was stuck in a ball turret. Now, actually the pilot, the co-pilot, and the bombardier had all bailed out of the plane, thinking that we had bailed out, but we had to get him out of the ball turret. What had happened, the empty shells had fallen into his gearbox,
right.
And he couldn't elevate himself from the ball turret. He couldn't get up beyond his waist. So the radio man and I had to go out and pluck these things out without being shot up as I was. I could only do it with my left hand. Now we're running out of oxygen. We finally get them out of the plane. We build out at 27,000 feet. You have to take a free fall because there's no oxygen up there. And when we finally came to, usually you pass out coming down. So when you passed out, you get down to about 10,000 feet, you start coming back to life again because of oxygen there. And by the time I could get my parachute open, with the faith of God, I'll tell you, that I hit the ground pretty hard and broke 6 ribs. I broke an arm, I fractured an ankle, and partly fractured another one, and I had a split hip.
And where did you land? You're in Germany or France?
And by this time, we were 13 kilometers west of Reims, France, in a place called La Bonne Maison, which means the good house. I landed in a World War I air base, right on the runway.
You just have no luck at all, do you?
No. Well, I'll tell you what.
If you're going to land anyway, you don't want to land in a World War I air base on the German-France border.
What happened is that 2 German planes came over and gave my position away to the Gestapo. They came in, they caught me and brought me to the farmhouse and kept me there for 7 or 8 days. They wanted to amputate my right arm. I wouldn't let them do it because it was gangrenated. And I said I'd rather die than have that done. And so they left me for dead with 2 German guards. About the 9th day, 3 men walked in with pistols, and one came up to me and put his finger to his mouth, and the other two went in the back room and shot the two guys and got me out. They brought me to a clinic. There was a French Jew doctor that ran the clinic, hiding in the cellar. He came up and operated on me 3 times in 28 hours to save my life. His name was Dr. Levy. His wife was a nurse, and she was a French woman. The second time I got captured is after I escaped from the Gestapo. Then it was the second time we escaped was when I worked with the British intelligence, and I worked with that's who gave me the name Burgundy. That's where the code name comes from. I worked with the British intelligence and the French resistance. It's a long story of what we used to do to the Germans. So they put a $10,000 reward on me because they knew that I was involved with these people, but they couldn't find me. Until one day, somebody came by and gave the Gestapo where I was living, and I got picked up by the Gestapo again.
How did you, I hate to slow you down, but you escape, you get picked up by the Gestapo. They don't kill you.
No, they don't want it.
You escape again, and the Gestapo picks you up the second time. They still don't kill you?
No, they want information.
Did they? Oh, so all right. Because I was gonna say, like, did they really like you? I mean, I don't understand.
They beat the devil out of you, but they don't.
Yeah.
They want to get as much information out of you as they can, but I wouldn't give them any information. But they want the more information out of the woman that was captured, and they tortured the devil out of her. But she never gave up any information. She was actually not shot. She was allowed to remain alive, taken to a prison camp. She was there a year and a half, and she became, the reason they allowed her to live, because she could bake bread, and she could, her husband had a bakery. Fortunately, he was out delivering bread that day, and they didn't capture him. But he and I did an awful lot of damage to the Germans.
You're doing a lot of shenanigans while you were...
He taught me how to be a Marine on the ground. I was an airman in the air, but I was a Marine on the ground.
Wow.
And that guy lived up until about a year ago. My book now is going to be in French, and I've given Code Burgundy to the French people out there in English, but a lot of them can't read English. So now I've translated it into French, and I'm editing it right now. By next month.
And you understand French?
A little, yes.
Yeah.
I took French in school, and being over there, I learned to speak. Get along pretty well with them. My broken French and their broken English, we get along very well. And what had happened is I was fortunate to escape the second time, but it'll take me a half an hour to tell you how that was done. But
well, no, we want to hear it. So should we take a quick break? Because he thinks it's going to take long. If you want to take a break, Chris, if not, we can keep going and just jam the break in later on. I'm going to leave it up to you because you're the able, fine, and capable producer, former United States Marine. Actually, United States Marine, there's no such thing as a former Marine, what I am told from my friends, Juan Vara and the rest of those guys down at the Paris Island Marine Boot Camp, who do listen to the show. I want to say hi to all of our Marine friends down at Paris Island that listen to the show on the podcast. They listen to it on www.980wcap.com. And Sergeant Lett up in New Hampshire, who also listens to us, United States Marine. A lot of guys from the Army, a lot of guys from the Navy. Not so many Air Force guys since Tech Sergeant James Moore left. He was our recruiting friend in Lawrence. He left, went back to Ohio. But we certainly appreciate all the members of the armed forces who listen to the program, those of you who went off and offered the future happiness of your family by putting on a uniform and being willing to die for your country. And obviously, this weekend, we remember all of those who did give their lives for this country. When we come back, World War II hero, author of Code Burgundy. His name is John Katsaros. And he's got such an amazing story. I wish we had 3 hours with him today. We're giving him the entire last hour of the show here on Memorial Day weekend 2014. His story is amazing, and hopefully he will share with us his thoughts. If he doesn't, that's okay. But I do want to ask him at some point his thoughts on the disgraceful treatment that our veterans are getting at the hands of the VA. And if he doesn't want to talk about that, that's okay. I know that's not why he's here, but since he's here, I'm going to certainly broach it because it is a topic that everyone, I think, is disgusted by after seeing the news of the last couple of weeks. 978-454-4980. If you'd like to ask a question of World War II hero, author of Code Burgundy, John Katsaros, now's the time to get in. 978-454-4980. Shakira says we gotta take a break. I love her. Someday I'm gonna meet her. With all these movie connections and all these music connections that I have, we gotta meet Shakira someday. That's my goal. Then I can die after that. Then there'll be nothing left worth living. Back after this, I'm paying attention where everybody gets it, even World War II hero, 3-time escapee, John Katsaros. But next week we're going to get to all of those things, because today it's Memorial Day weekend. And we have in the studio, and I know he's probably shy and doesn't like this kind of praise, because most heroes don't. We have a guy in the studio who in World War II was captured twice by the Nazis, once by the Spanish who were helping the Nazis, escaped all 3 times, and was beaten, was tortured, and didn't give up the information that the Nazis wanted him to give, that the Spanish wanted him to give. And he's written a book called Code Burgundy. That was his handle. That was the handle given to him by the British intelligence.
Well, the British intelligence was set up by Winston Churchill at that time, and he was losing a lot of pilots during the Battle of Britain before we got into the war. And he didn't care of losing his airplanes. He was interested in getting his pilots back. So he set up a program called SOE, the Special Operations Executive, and that he figured 3 different ways to get these pilots back that were shot down in enemy territory. The first method was when the British would fly over and drop supplies to the French resistance to help them during the invasion. They was sending over not only spies that were on the ground, and they would take this plane and they landed on a grass airfield, and as it was taxiing, they were told to jump on the plane and they'd take it back. It was like a Piper Cub that they had.
Right.
And the second method was by bringing over the British had these gunboats that would hold several people, and they pick up their pilots and they pick up their spies and bring them across the English Channel back to England. The third method was the toughest method. That was climbing the Pyrenees Mountains. And you could do this in 1 day, or you could do it in 4 or 5 days. And in my case, the British had French resistance workers out of Paris, quite a few of them. And the head man was the chief police of Paris, who I met while I was in Paris. He fit me up with a gendarme's uniform, and I walked around the Champs-Élysées along with another gendarme. And that's how I used I had several disguises.
What is a gendarme?
That was a disguise.
I see.
And I had several disguises, and that was the best one I had. And in my book, I get a picture of that.
Oh, no kidding.
See it, yeah.
So they didn't dress you up in like a little French maid's outfit and have you pretend to be...
Well, I did that too.
See, out of the gate, I'm trying to be funny, and it turns out to be true on top of it all.
You do everything possible to get away.
Well, yeah, because you're basically fighting for your life. You're behind enemy territory. You're behind enemy lines, right?
That's right.
The Gestapo is looking for you. All of the Nazis are looking for you, and the Nazi collaborators are also looking for you.
Right, yeah.
And some of them are French, some of them are Spanish, and they've woven themselves into the resistance movements to try and find guys like you. So you not only had to worry about the Germans finding you, you had to worry about the average people who were traitors who were helping the Germans.
Now, another situation happened right after I was operated on. I rang a bell when I was in the hospital to get some water because I was dehydrated. I hadn't had anything to eat for 9 days. I didn't have anything to drink. The only thing they gave you was some wine or some a Coke or a beer, which you don't want. You needed water. And I kept saying, I need de l'eau. That's the word for water in French. And they said, that's not good for you to rush your stomach. But I needed it. And when I rang the bell, the nurse ran upstairs. She says, vite, vite, allez. That means, hurry up, get up, we're going to dress you up. I said, what's the matter? She said, the lady downstairs was a collaborator with the Gestapo. When you rang the bell, she knew nobody was supposed to be in that room you're in, and they're going to come and check it out. So they dressed me up my bloody coverall, and they put me out on the sidewalk. 15 minutes later, I had rolled off into a gutter, and the Germans were walking by thinking I probably was a drunk. They left me there.
So you pretended to be a homeless drunk bum laying in the gutter. They just walked right over you and go, "Where's that Katsaros guy? We can't find him."
I couldn't move anyway.
That's awesome.
Two people came, picked me up, and they brought me to the World War I French cavalry headquarters in Reims. And they brought me upstairs on the second floor, put me in jail. And so I said, I couldn't understand why I was there. And they brought an officer in there, and he started questioning me. I wouldn't give him an answer. So they threatened to shoot me. I said, why? I'm an American, and that's all I'm going to tell you. I was a flyer, and you fellas know about that. But they wanted to know the whole story, and I wouldn't give it to them. So they brought in a French-speaking woman to talk English in Reims, and she said, tomorrow they're going to shoot you unless you come out with some answers. I said, what's the problem? She said, you made one mistake. I said, what's that? He said, when they ask you a question, instead of saying yes, you said yeah. And that's the way the Americans say it. You know what yeah means in German, don't you?
No.
That's what the word for yes. They thought I was a German airman that was shot and parachuted purposely.
So they thought you were an insurgent on the other side.
That's right.
Wow.
They thought I was German.
So you couldn't win no matter where you went.
That's right.
Jesus.
And see, you had to have you had to have 5 things
Right.
in order to survive. One was you had to have faith. And I prayed in Greek.
Right.
Greek Orthodox. I had a lot of luck. I had helpers. You had to have the guts to do this. And you had to have the will to live.
Right.
You had to have those 5 things. Because if you didn't have those 5 things, you were captured. They captured 200 airmen in Paris 3 days after I left, along with the chief of police, and they shot them. Shot everyone. If you went to the World War II 8th Air Force Museum in Savannah, you see the whole story. It hasn't been made public. The other thing is that every time you turn around, there's something new that develops, you know. And what happened when we tried to climb the Pyrenees, I was telling you, is that we were supposed to climb over one day, and when they told us that that line was broken, we knew that Chuck Yeager, who broke the speed record, the sound barrier, who's a general today, he'd get shot down in southern France, and a week before we were down there, he climbed the Pyrenees in one day and made it into Spain, and he was locked up in Loretta prison. He was there before I was. And what happened is we were rerouted to another trail, and the trail we took, they called it Burgundy, because I was the only one with the code name. And that's the only time anybody ever climbed it. And it was 4 days and 4 nights of climbing. No food, no water, no climbing clothes, pair of dress shoes that you had, they were too small for you, because the French people were shot in those days. And
yeah, they're all small people. So
yeah, I was 6 feet tall, and I had size 11, and they gave me about a 9.5 pair of shoes. You know,
wow.
And I had to cut them to climb. And we were up there 13,000 feet, snow on the ground. The only thing we could drink was snow. And some fella came over and gave me 2 pieces of sugar. And he said, just let it melt in your mouth. It gave me the energy to make my last day.
Wow.
That's where we got locked up. And when we found out that Chuck Yeager got out of the prison through the doctor, that's when we were able to call the British Embassy, and they came and got us out a few days later. So it was not escape out of there. They released us.
Yeah, they had to come get you.
Yeah, because later on, General Franco, who won the war, the Civil War, with the help of the Germans, he became friendly with Eisenhower. But at that time, they were pro-Nazi.
Wow.
And they were receiving oil from the American government to release the Americans. So they'd take the oil, they'd sell it over to the Nazis. It was a crazy war.
Yeah.
There's a lot of secrets in this stuff. But I was held secret. I have never been released my secrecy document, except verbally. But I printed the book on the basis of the American Freedom of Information Act.
God bless you.
Yeah. So I thought I'd get it out because I had to honor the French resistance for what they did.
Yes.
Now you asked a question earlier, and that is, what about the VA? Well, when we got out of the service, if you read in my book, you'll see that I was supposed to go to West Point doctor. I went before 7 doctors in Boston. And they said, you can't take the rigors of West Point. I couldn't tell them anything because the only one I could answer to would have been Eisenhower. With the authority of Eisenhower. Of course, he's dead now. How am I ever going to get a written release? So they gave you a number. And my number is EE755, which means escape and evasion. He escaped an evasion, number 755. I'm the only living escapee today, and I'm president of Escape and Evasion Society. And we have never been recognized.
Wow.
All right? So when I got in front of those doctors, they wouldn't let me go to West Point. They gave me the discharge. You know what my discharge paper says? It says physical condition when discharged, poor, P-O-O-R. You read my book, you'll see it in there.
Right.
Well, anyway, now, where you go to your own doctor here, and you get set up. They really didn't take care of the people coming back as well as they should. It took us years and years for people like myself to get the VA to start doing something. It took about 50, 60 years to do it.
Why do you think that is? Because, you know, I know that it's very popular right now to blame Obama. Certainly it's Obama's fault what's happening now because he knew about it before he was president and did nothing about it. However, you know, Jon Stewart, who's not really someone you should be quoting for any kind of news stuff, but happens to be the only guy on the planet right now who has made this point, that even the guys who fought in the Civil War, even the guys that fought in the First World War, in the Korean War, in some of these other previous wars, they all got treated very shabbily by the Veterans Administration when they came back. The Veterans Administration has never really cared about these men returning, that they see them as numbers, they see them as a burden, they see them as a cost. And while, yes, we blame President Obama because he's the guy in charge now not fixing it, I think it's worthy of note. Even to the greatest generation, when you guys first came back, you guys still got treated like crap.
It's still tough. It's tough to do it. And the reason why is that the health system that the VA has is so huge. It's the biggest in the world, and they got millions of these people taken care of. I'll tell you right now, they take care of me and fellows like me very, very well. The people that are not being treated as well as the Vietnam veterans, the ones from Iraq and Afghanistan. And the reason is they all got post-traumatic stress. I don't like the word disorder, but they call it PSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
But in the old days, they used to say you'll not be retarded or you're gone mental.
They call you shell shock.
Yeah, shell
and
shock.
Just move on.
Yeah. Now with the post-traumatic stress disorder, what we do, they have set up programs, and I worked with 140 World War II people who were prisoners of war, ex-prisoners of war in Boston, and we did that. I did that for years, and fortunately, I had post-traumatic stress disorder as well, but it's very, very light in comparison to a lot of these other people. For instance, I'll give you an example of a guy in Lowell that was an engineer in Saudi Arabia, and he'd come to our meetings, and we were trying to get him to speak up, and because once you get him to speak up and say something, then this thing wears itself out.
Right.
For instance, I didn't speak to my mother and father, 2 brothers and sisters passed away, and they never knew the story I'm telling you today. And that fella, I tried to get him to talk, and he wouldn't do it. One day, we went out at the meeting, and there was a woman who picked him up. I come to find out that was his wife. He didn't introduce me, somebody else introduced me to her, because he didn't speak. And I said, gee, you sound like a Greek woman. You Greek? She says, yes. So I said, I'm a Greek too. She said, why don't you tell your husband to say a few words, because he never says anything. He says, honey, would you say something to me in Greek? And he turns around and he says, Sagapo, which means I love you.
Oh.
That's the first words we ever heard out of this guy in 2 years.
Wow.
And here's an engineer working so many years for Saudi Arabia and clamped up, is always in trouble. And the next meeting he came to, I had told his wife, make certain he breaks down and tells us his story. He came in, never stopped talking.
Well, that's great.
He never stopped talking. We broke him out of it. So this is what they do. And you have to take individual people like this and work with them, but it's a hard thing for them to do. So they enlist people like myself to go to these meetings to help out. So we're doing a good job, and slowly but surely it's working out. Now, I go to the West Palm Beach health system the VA has. They do a fantastic job there. It's the best I've ever seen. Even better than Boston. Boston's pretty good. Lowell is pretty good. They're doing good things, but people don't know about the good things. They hear about the bad things.
Right.
What has happened out there, I don't know. If they had these crazy setups, they had limits.
So you never actually experienced any problems with the VA yourself?
Originally, yes. For years.
Oh, for when you
years,
first came back?
Years, and that's what these kids are going through now.
Right.
Because they experience the same thing. There's such a backlog of them coming out. They should, somehow or other, they should hire a lot of people. They should put so much money into it to take care of these people.
Right.
And if the biggest problem with Obama, he's restricted the military. And the military, and that affects the VA,
Right.
money-wise. You've got to spend the money to take care of these people. See, you've got to get the help. Today I find out that they shot over 1,100 people that they're trying to hire to come to the VA. Well, why don't they hire them? There's a lot of people out there who want to work. Get them to work. Put these people in there. It's such a huge system. It's tough.
It almost seems as though the long-term solution is going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of restructuring of the VA to fix it. However, to deal with the problems that are occurring now, the guys that are coming back now that have problems, that have cancer, that have other diseases, that have arms missing, legs missing, it almost seems as though if the president really cared, like he says he cares. I mean, he cared enough about Trayvon Martin to make a comment the next day. He cared about what he thought happened in Cambridge by attacking Sergeant Crowley of the Cambridge Police Department the next day. We are now, I think, in day 15 or 16 of this scandal breaking. We've still heard nothing from the president. And if he really cared, I would think that he would give a voucher to every veteran that's sitting on a waiting list that can't get seen by a doctor to let them go somewhere else and get care somewhere else. Because I understand that the big picture problem, the VA being fixed, is going to take a lot. Restructuring and meetings and a lot more money, and I get that. But in the meantime, do we have to let our veterans die, commit suicide because they're not getting care, be abused, be neglected, be tortured by some of these people that are running some of these VA clinics?
They got to put them in the system. They don't get them in the system fast enough.
Right.
And once you get into the system, because of emergency, you could go to the Lowell General Hospital or the Lowell, whatever hospitals you have in the area, and you can get treated by them, and they'll pay for it. But you have to be in the system.
Right.
But it takes so long to get you going in the system.
Because it's such a big bureaucracy.
It is.
And yet people somehow think Obamacare is going to be better.
Oh, no.
The VA is actually the physical model for Obamacare. And people are starting to now see what Obamacare is really going to be like for all of us come 10, 15 years from now.
5 years ago, the VA system, health system, was rated as the best system in the world. And now it's falling apart.
Right.
Because all these people are coming back.
Right.
And they just don't have the workers to help them out. They should get somebody in there that knows how to handle these things.
I'm wondering though, why do we even have a VA? Why not just give all of the guys who go off and fight for our country, why not just give them free health care to go wherever they want? Why do they have to go to a specific hospital and deal with specific regulations and red tape? And because we know when the federal government does stuff, they never do it better than the private sector.
Well, the reason why they have so many there's tens of millions of these people, tens of millions, and of course there's a lot of World War II vets are dying rapidly every day. And how many more years have I got to go? I'm not going to be 91 soon. And
you're going to be 91?
Yeah, July 6th. And there's so many entering into this thing. We have the military. You need that military, and those people get out. This fellow here is a Marine. He gets out he gets out of it in 4 years. And he should get some kind of treatment as well.
Absolutely.
But
we've got another hero here with us, Tom Weaver.
I'm not a
Tom, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Yourself?
Yeah, what were you in?
I floated around on the ocean.
You float around as a naval man.
Navy,
I said,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have a pick with a Navy because when they put me in the Navy, and I was there for 6 months as an air cadet, and they threw me out, and I never got a discharge. So I'm looking for my back pay.
We have
Can you help me with that?
I got a text message from one of our listeners who said, please thank this man for his heroism and service on behalf of all of your listeners at WCAP. We live in a free nation today because of men and women who served and gave their lives to ensure our liberty. Men like John Katsaros, truly humbling. Thank you for having him on. So I just wanted to pass that along from one of our
Thank
listeners.
you very much. But the point is, I hate to be called a hero.
I know, because real heroes don't want to be called heroes.
No, and my heroes are the ones that I lost,
came
the
back.
4 men I lost, and all the other people.
What were their names?
My Air Force, the 8th Air Force, would you believe it, had 50,000 men that were shot down, and they were either dead, incarcerated as prisoners, or wounded badly, never lived long after the war either. Those are the heroes.
What were the names of the 4 men that you lost on your ship?
Mark, Lieutenant Mark was our navigator. Our replacement engineer, I was the engineer, but they made a photographer out of me because they needed a photographer. And thank God I wasn't flying the engineer that day because he got killed. And he was a new man, first time he ever flew with us. I can't even remember his name. And that was the second engineer we lost. So I was the engineer after we lost the first guy, and I was the photographer.
And your turret gunner.
Yeah, and then we lost him, and then we had Marvin Benz, who was the tail gunner, and the left waist gunner was Jack Crowley. They're all dead. I'm the only one living today.
Well, God bless you, and thank you so much for your service. If you're interested in John's book, it's called Code Burgundy. You can email him at jkatsaros3@comcast.net, and I'll spell that for you. It's J, K as in kite, ATSAROS, the number 3, at comcast.net. You can also call him at 978-869-3035. If you, we have a lot of people who listen to this program who produce television, who make movies, who produce music. If anybody is out there that wants to book John to talk about his experience, to talk about his book, maybe to honor him in a movie, in a song, however it is that you want to do, please give him a call, 978-869-3035. Do you have a manager? I'll be your manager if you need a manager.
I'll be happy to have you as a manager.
All right, because you got to screen out the crazies. There's a lot of crazy people out there.
That's right, you're right.
And you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Talking to John Katsaros, he is a World War II hero, and like most heroes, does not want to be called a hero. But we call them heroes anyway, because although we know those who did not come back are our heroes, and we honor them this weekend, those who came back and tell the story so that these things are never forgotten, so that our liberal Hollywood media, so that our liberal news media cannot rewrite history, cannot pretend things happened that didn't happen or vice versa. I think it's very important that we sit down and we listen to the stories and that we tell the stories of people like John Katsaros, because we know that we're, as Reagan said, we are one generation away from losing our freedom and having history rewritten for us by our enemies. And so that's why I think it's very important. You wanted to say something.
And I want to end up by saying, Tom, I appreciate what you're doing for the veterans, in your newspaper, the Patriots, and what you do in the radio program as well. You've done a fantastic job, and I want to thank you very much for that.
I mean, what we're doing here is just such a small part. You're the guy that's got the story to tell. And Code Burgundy is a very easy read. It's one of my favorite books, and I don't read books that often because I'm so busy, but the other book that I want to suggest that you read, if you can, get a hold of it. I think you can still get it on Madison Books and at Amazon. It's called From the Holocaust to Hogan's Heroes. And it was written by Robert Cleary, the guy that played LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes. It's a very easy read, very short book. but he was captured. He and his entire family, he and his 13 brothers and sisters, and he's the only one that made it. And it was very, I thought, ironic that he ended up in Hogan's Heroes as a prisoner of war, as an actor, as a character prisoner of war, when he actually was a prisoner of war. John Katsaros is here with us. How much time do we have left there? Less than 1 minute. Okay, so the podcast of this will be up on the internet probably within a couple of hours after we go off the air. Again, the phone number if you want to email me through Facebook, I could screen some of you guys out and maybe point you in the right direction as to how to get a hold of John. If you want to call him directly, it's 978-869-3035. His email is jkatsaros, J-K-A-T-S-A-R-O-S, number 3, at Comcast.net. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for writing this book so that future generations will never forget what happened. And we're going to have to ban Tom Weaver from coming into the show because he always comes in the last 5 minutes and hijacks my guest.